I want to say thank you to so many people, all of you that make us a community. There is no small part that is played. There are some parts that are more public than others. There are some parts where you produce a little more sweat than others. But everybody plays a part in making us a community and creating a sense of belonging and a sense of hope. And the good words that we pass among each other, it adds to the healing of our souls. So all the way from the musicians and the guest musicians to the choir, Forrest, and all the staff, and the cleverness and creativity of Abbott, and the hard work that keeps us moving on a timeline for Lois, and all of the staff members, all of you, everybody. This is not a celebration for you. It is a celebration about us, who we are, and who we are in the world, and who we are for each other. So, thank you so much for that. The Word About Life is going to focus on one particular part of the reading, and I want to share that with you. The sentence is, "But these words seemed to them," that is, seemed to the disciples, "seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them." An idle tale. Now, how many of you have been a victim of idle tales? How many? And I would include preaching okay? How many of you have actually been the person who told the idle tale? Not that I'm looking at some of you and I don't see anybody. Okay. But these words seemed to the disciples an idle tale, and they did not believe them. The question that I have when I read this, and the focus of that verse for my thoughts and preparation, a question that came to me is, how do we move from an idle tale to powerful, world-transforming witness? How do we move from an idle tale to powerful, world-transforming witness? An idle tale is a story that cannot be true. It is a waste of time. It's a waste of breath to tell it and to hear it. When an engine is idling, it's not engaged. It can't move anything or anyone anywhere. And the women in this story, the only ones who did not abandon Jesus, according to the first three Gospels, share their experience at the tomb of Jesus, and they are dismissed. Their story seems to diminish and dismiss the grief of the people who are brokenhearted. You can understand the disciples did not want to hear any platitudes. They didn't want to hear any cliches. A cliche such as, "He isn't really dead as long as he lives in your heart." And even though this may be true, sometimes we can say it too soon because anger is a part of grief. And because anger is a part of the grieving process, the disciples' response is actually more reactionary than the Scripture lets on. The text says that they thought it was an idle tale. But the original Greek is much stronger. They thought it was leiros. Leiros. You can imagine even that they shouted an expletive, leiros. Leiros is translated a couple of different ways. It means dirty. It means trash. And smudge. But not just any dirt or smudge. It's a dirt and a smudge of a particular organic nature. It is bull hockey. Please understand the process here. The disciples hear the news of an empty tomb, and hearing the meaning that the women ascribe to the empty tomb, that is, even though we saw him executed, he is alive. And they shout, the disciples shout, bull hockey, without the word hockey. The disciples are incredulous, they're broken, and they're angry. And unable to hear the meaning the women ascribe to the empty tomb of Jesus. Now, there are different versions of the crucifixion and different versions of the resurrection because, you see, the Gospels are not recording the events. The Gospels are telling us what the events mean to the community of the first followers of Jesus. So at the end of today's Word About Life, we have Peter, the one who Jesus gave the keys to the kingdom, the one whom Jesus said, I am going to build my church. He dared to go and see for himself. The testimony of the women moved from an idle tale, that is, it moved from bull hockey to a powerful world-transforming witness. The key is in the last verse. Peter got up, he ran to the place of death to see for himself, saw evidence of hope, and then he went home and shared his amazement and hope with everyone he met. And so the question stands. How does an idle tale move to powerful, world-transforming witness? On April 15th, Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire. Less than a week ago, one of the most famous cathedrals in Western history burned, and immediately calls to rebuild and to give money were heard and answered. Before Notre Dame, there were a few other church buildings. On March 26, less than a month ago, St. Mary Baptist Church caught on fire. On April 2nd, the Greater Union Baptist Church burned to the ground. On April 4th, the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church burned to the ground. All three of these churches were houses of worship for black congregations in Louisiana. The congregants in the buildings were victims of hate crimes and arson. After Notre Dame caught fire, donations to rebuild the churches skyrocketed. The GoFundMe site for the black churches went from $50,000 to $1.5 million in less than a week. Freddie Jack, a pastor and president of the 7th District Missionary Baptist Association, said the donations for both Notre Dame and Louisiana churches showed the great compassion and generosity of people. The rebuilding of these houses of worship from France to Louisiana is an example of moving from idle tale to powerful, world-transforming witness. Pastor Jack went on to say, when tragedy such as this strikes, we put aside our differences. People from all walks of life pull together their resources and assist people. You see, like Peter, they got up. They ran to the site of death to see for themselves, saw evidence for hope, went home, and shared their amazement and hope with everyone they met. Over a year ago, when we took in a large group of asylum seekers, John Pierce, new to our spiritual family at the time, helped us for his first time. He saw the devastation of the parents. He saw the devastation and brokenness and trauma of the children. He saw the way that we were a part of restoring their hope and their dignity. John said it was the most Christian experience he had ever witnessed or been a part of. Like Peter, he got up, ran to the site of death, saw evidence of hope, went home and shared his amazement and hope with everyone he met. This is how idle tales moved a powerful, world-transforming witness. Now, I want to push us a bit further. It's kind of warm fuzzy at this point, but I want to go a little bit further. Oh, please, Ken, leave well enough at all. No. I want you to think about what resurrection can look like for us today. Let's go back to the Notre Dame Cathedral. As the people of France, believers and non-believers, Protestants and Catholics, Muslims and many other religions, young and old, gay and straight, black, brown, white, yellow, and red, all people will have the resources to restore or to replace. All of them will pray in their own way what they can give to the effort, if they give at all. The people, as a nation, will have a choice to restore and preserve the past or to build with vision for the needs of the people now and the needs of future generations. The donation of $100 million from one billionaire can do a lot of good. It is only my opinion, and I share it with you only to provoke thought. I think resurrection looks like building with a vision for the needs of the people now and the needs of future generations. It's easy to tell others what they should do with their money and their buildings. But what about us? Would I say the same thing if our sanctuary burned to the ground? The first time I walked into this space as a candidate to be your pastor, I stood back there. I walked in the door with Debbie Miller and a few others, Libby Banks. I stood there and I looked out this window, I looked this way, and I said, wow. This is beautiful. How could anyone not worship in this place? And yet, if our sanctuary burned to the ground, I would grieve, but I also would be asking resurrection questions about what we should and could do next. Rebuild to recreate and preserve the past? Or rebuild so as to best serve the present and the future? In the middle of grief, when I would ask those questions, some of you would say, Leiros, Bohaki. But some of you would get up, go see the site of death, see the evidence of hope, go home and share your amazement and hope with everyone you meet. Easter is not the time to deny the losses of your life. Every single one of you have had a loss. You have lost something or someone. And you are at some stage, at some point of grieving. Easter is the time to run toward those losses and look them square in the eye. In those losses is pain and devastation, but also in them is evidence of hope. Just as the cross long ago should help us see the crosses of today, so the resurrection of long ago should help us see the resurrections of today and the resurrections all around us. In your life, in your family, in our community, in our church, in our nation, and in our world. Love and life has the last word in history and in your life. Amen.